Play, Watch, Listen is a mostly games industry podcast featuring mostly game developers, and it is funded entirely by supporters on Patreon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Play, Watch, Listen. I'm Alana Pierce. I'm a video game writer. That's my Bithel. He's the video game director. Today, we are joined by Nathan Grayson, who is a video game journalist. I don't know how you people like to introduce yourselves. Sometimes people get
You people is an amazing start, my man.
I went on the Friends Per Second podcast recently, and I said, "You're all games journalists," and they went, "Well," so
Why did they dispute that? What did
they
say they
because
weren't
that's not their job titles. So Lucy James is a senior video producer. Ralph Skillup, I don't know what he said his title was, but I guess he would be a YouTuber. Different distinctions. So Nathan,
yeah, no, I get that.
That's what I would call you.
Yeah, I'm definitely a journalist. I'm not cut out for the world of YouTube or anything like that. I just sporadically stream because you have to do that now.
True.
Or else, you just get lost in the rush of the internet.
Well, thank you for joining us here today on video format. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
We wanted to chat to you today, in no small part because there have been layoffs across the games journals in space. And this week it was announced that IGN Entertainment as a branch, or I guess as if Davis, I'm not really sure. You're a better person to ask. What happened this week, Nathan?
Yeah, so as you were saying, IGN Entertainment bought the Gamer Network essentially, which is a network of sites that includes like Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, GI.biz, VG247, like a lot of video game news sites that people have heard of, regularly visit, that kind of a thing. IGN Entertainment is a branch of Ziff.
So IGN Entertainment bought the Gamer Network. Who previously owned the Gamer Network? Was that ReedPop?
Yes, that was ReedPop.
Okay.
ReedPop puts on things like PAX, New York Comic Con, events of that nature. And for a while, their strategy was to sort of, use these publications, I think, is kind of like, not exactly an advertising arm, but, like every time they had a big event, all those publications would be there in force, covering various panels and writing about the experience of being there. And, I think that made a certain degree of sense for them. But I think what seems to have happened is like, then the pandemic hit, and that sort of put the kibosh on events for a while. And like, I think over time, ReedPop was just like, yeah, this isn't really working for us anymore.
The event
we don't
stuff.
need these.
They tried to do E3 as well, right? And ultimately failed. They got E3 last year.
Something like that. I forget how they're. Yeah, but E3 is like super officially dead now. It's totally done and over with. Yeah. All hail Summer Games Fest. Summer Game Fest. It's
Thanks,
singular.
Jeff.
I do that
Summer
every
Games
single time. Every single time.
Summer Games
Fest.
Wait, it should be Summer Games Fest. It is Summer Game Fest?
Because there's more than one game.
There are multiple games.
Yeah.
But what game do you think they picked for Summer Game Fest?
Thing.
Like if it was just Summer Game Fest, what's the game?
Whatever Kojima's working on.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, whatever he happens to be working on at the time.
Yeah.
So I was like pretty surprised by this news. When I still worked at IGN, they acquired Humble, and even that was really weird. Like I remember internally, the staff being like, "What are we supposed to do about covering Humble games?" Like what? Because they didn't tell us; it just happened, and they were like, "You didn't want to like talk to anybody on the editorial team," but like it was very, very surprising. And I guess I was also surprised to see IGN do this because, look, I haven't worked there in a hot minute, but I always had the impression that IGN's goal was to eat all of the competition, which I'm really hoping doesn't happen here for obvious reasons. But that was always the impression I had, that their goal was to be the IGN, and that nobody else. They didn't want anyone else to exist. But did this catch you off guard, Nathan?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Like insofar as, we knew the Gamer Network was for sale. ReedPop announced that they were kind of like shopping it around at the end of last year. I don't think I expected IGN to buy them, but at the same time, I don't know who I expected to buy them because nobody's really buying media companies right now. It's not a good business play. It is, in fact, quite a bad one on most levels.
You'd have to be ridiculously stupid to set up a news outlet of any kind at the moment, right?
What a crazy thing for anyone to do. Why would anyone do that?
Dumb idiot.
Nathan did that, everybody.
Sorry, yeah, we should plug immediately.
That's right. To be clear for people who don't know me, I'm a founder and reporter at Aftermath, which is a worker-owned video game publication that me and some other people launched last year.
It is because, the only outlet that I currently monetarily support.
Thank you.
So good.
Partly because it's worker owned, which is awesome, but also just because I think you guys do really good work. It's like you often post something that I was not expecting to see, and I go, you know what? I am interested in that, and that's like my favorite kind of journalism. Is like, wow, I hadn't
like
thought about that thing before.
I feel there was more journalism like that a while ago, right? Like I feel like that's what journalism used to be.
Well, that's
That we
part
would
of what I
like be
wanted to talk
intellectually
about.
interested by things back
Yeah,
then.
Right.
and I
I'm
don't want
sure
to
I remember
be
that.
like the journalism sucks, but reality is, I think, like I was just talking about this the other day, that journalism is, in my opinion, and I'm so curious to talk to you about it, Nathan, in general, in a really weird spot now where, I'm the kind of person who every time that I Google something now, I put Reddit on the end to get a human answer because there are so many AI generated articles that are flooding the front page. You'll even see like news reports. I've seen some journalists talk about this being edited for SEO purposes after they've written them. Their headlines are being edited just for SEO, and then the context of the article doesn't make sense. Like half of them are just written by AI, so it's just such a like messy time to find actual information on the web unless you're doing the kind of thing that I'm doing, like subscribing to a website or to individual people, which is my favorite thing to do. But yeah, I mean, I guess would you agree with that journalism right now with the AI takeover and I don't know, it's a lot of noise, but is in a kind of weird spot.
It's rough out there. I mean, like just yesterday, the Washington Post announced that they're going to like have all these AI initiatives going forward, which sounds absolutely terrible. Especially because like you're the Washington Post, you don't need to do that. You are supported by Jeff Bezos. You can hire infinite people.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of that, and even within the whole thing of like IGN buying Gamer Network, this is sort of what people are worried about is like the SEOification of journalism, and like IGN still does a lot of really good work,
Totally.
but IGN also is like a really big publication that has to lean into a lot of these tactics in order to maintain its spot on top, and so people look at all these other like kind of unique, kind of almost boutique websites being bought by IGN, and their concern, and it may or may not prove to be well founded, is that IGN will kind of force those websites to be a little bit more in its own mold over time, and to play a little bit more to like established SEO strategies and things like that. So taking something like Rock Paper Shotgun and making them be like, we're going to publish more pieces that are like guides, or that like are about whatever major game, whereas RPS's specialty is like writing about smaller games that people haven't heard about, or like
writing about RPS got bought by Gamer Network in the first place, right? I remember seeing that happen and just being like, that RPS feels like it should be absolutely 4 people in a shed making interesting articles. Like it's always, it was weird immediately.
It's funny that that's such a compliment for journalism.
Stages.
Like if you said that about a game studio, you'd be like, thanks, Mike. But saying that about journalists is like honestly a huge compliment. Like 4 people in a shed just writing things they care about. I'm not super familiar with Rock Paper Shotgun. Like I know the name, but I wasn't familiar with the kind of work that they did. They do like, you're saying like a lot of features or like indie game focused stuff?
They're a PC gaming website.
Gotcha, okay.
And so basically RPS was founded back in the day by some like ex-PC gamer folks, with the goal of like getting away from kind of what PC gamer was becoming and focusing on just like writing about games in ways that were expressive and interesting and personality driven.
Yeah.
What was Kieran's manifesto called? I'm gonna look this up because I need you to
New game. It was that was New Games Journalism, wasn't it?
The New Games Journalism. Basically a lot of stuff that I think, Alana, you probably were coming into journalism at a point where some of that stuff was kind of codified, but like basically like we should write from a position, we should write about games as cultural objects, we should write about our experiences with games, we are not marketing. And a lot of things that were already kind of things that I think he'd say like he codified a lot of stuff that other people were talking about, but it kind of became kind of the beating heart of game journalism for a good like decade, that kind of approach. And
I would say my whole journalism career was in line with that.
Yeah.
So I'd have to check the dates, but I think you probably rode in on like that wave, maybe without even knowing that.
I think I started in 2011. I'm pretty sure. Maybe.
I think,
it
would have been just
so long ago.
It was around then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
My immediate response to that acquisition, as somebody who, like, similarly, I think IGN still does do a lot of good work. People shit on them all the time because they're the most popular. Like, straight up, that's what it is. They do still do a lot of very good work and some not so good work. It's across the board. Like, if I have to read any more articles on IGN about how a monitor has been discounted because they have affiliate links, shoot myself in the face. But of course, I'm going to have to shoot myself in the face because that's how they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But my immediate response was negative, that it feels like such a monopoly for a website that I feel like already had so much of a monopoly. Like IGN compared to their next closest competitor, which I would have thought was GameSpot. I'm actually not sure what those rankings are, is so far ahead. They're so successful, and it's just, I don't know, feels scary to me. But part of that was amplified for me when I saw, I think it was even you sharing it, Nathan, that some of the senior staff or like editors were laid off from these websites.
Yeah. So several like prominent editors, people in senior positions at those sites were laid off. Alice Bell at Rock Paper Shotgun, Brendan Sinclair at GI Biz, Stephanie Nunnally at VG 24/7. Yeah, folks like that. And so all three of those people were in leadership positions. A couple of them had been around for like a decade at their respective sites.
Alice Bell was RPS to some extent, like in terms of tone, voice.
Well, also, she was their only editor. They don't have any editors right now. They just got rid of their one editor, which is a bonkers thing to do.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it very much seems like, you buy a bunch of sites this way and you get rid of their upper management. And so like you would imagine that then you're going to slot in, IGN leadership in their place. And, even if at that point they still let sites operate with some degree of independence, there's going to be more homogenization as a result of that. It's unavoidable because you have the same structures in place. And like structure is what decides ultimately the way that sites operate. It's less so like, individual people certainly contribute, but ultimately it's like how you do things that matters. So, yeah, I mean, like, I think that definitely this could lead to a situation where these sites lose a bit of their voice or what makes them unique.
It's just such a bummer. So obviously, since the last time we recorded the podcast, we've also had studio closures. Tango, Arcane Austin, and I hate that I'm forgetting the name of the other two studios, under Xbox were shut down, which is just like unbelievably heartbreaking. Tango is so difficult for me to rationalize. Hi-Fi Rush, I don't know. The thing I hate the most about it is that it feels like the quality of the games doesn't matter. How can you make something like Hi-Fi Rush?
No, it doesn't matter at all.
Get rid of it.
Gotta make the line go up.
Yeah.
If it doesn't make the line go up, then they're forfeit.
And it's real sad. And obviously the games industry, from the dev side, has seen tons of layoffs this year. Do you feel like the stuff that's been happening in journalism, which is also like quite a long list of layoffs, is like just that these two things are happening in tandem because of the economy, or do you think they're related to one another?
Well, I mean, I think that if you look at at layoffs in journalism, a lot of that also comes from like how unhealthy the general media climate is.
True.
So like, I mean, games, journalism, and video games are like related mediums, but they're not really like the same thing economically. Like, a lot of games journalism stems from traditional media business models. So it's like rooted in ads and ad sales, affiliate links, things like that, as you were saying. And all those things are just going down the drain. The ad market has been for a long time because social media basically took over all of that. And so like for a long time, websites could make really good money off ads. Then social media said, no, we're the biggest game in town now. And so everyone went over there. And now it's kind of like, selling ads for a video game website is a comparatively tall order.
Yeah, I guess I wondered if also like maybe there were marketing cuts from, the Call of Duties that were spending however much money they were to get a front page out on IGN. Like I wasn't sure if like that stuff's going away, but
I mean, it depends on the site you're talking about. Because something like Kotaku doesn't really, or well, they might like, buy ads involving Call of Duty, but it's more just that like the market holistically is really bad.
Yeah.
And so that's led to just increasing numbers of cuts at various websites, which in turn leads to a decrease in quality of the content coming out of those websites, which in turn leads to a decrease in readership, which leads to more cuts, which leads to, and like, so it's death literally by 1,000 cuts.
True. A whole 1,000 of them. I guess how, like, I think I completely agree with you that even I, as somebody who really likes a lot of varied journalism, I'll try and read as many things as possible, including things I disagree with, that I am also getting so much of my news now from Twitter or even from like, little square posts on Instagram. What do you think is the best way to keep .com journalism alive? Or like, how do you think these websites can survive? Like, what do you think the road looks like right now?
Well, the first and most important thing you can do is subscribe to aftermath.site. You can actually do it by going straight to aftermath.site/products.
You get
Nice.
3. You get 3.
He gets it. Mike, how many times have you told people to wishlist things on this goddamn show?
Look, sometimes you need to take a break from Tron Identity available Steam and Switch to read something, and
I can do that on aftermath.site/products.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like, I think it is worth saying that, like, because we're not the only like subscription based game in town. There's also Remap, sites like that. Support them directly. If you got $5 laying around, go subscribe. Like, I think that what's going to happen is for journalism that's more focused and less like rooted in, you know, the SEO grind. There's going to have to be a bit of a paradigm shift back to this idea that, you know, you pay for your news, which is not uncommon or unheard of. Like back in the day, people just subscribed to newspapers or magazines, and that's it.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, you paid for all of it. And so, like, I think that in the grand scheme of things, we'll look back on this moment where the entire internet was free, at least where news was free, as kind of an aberration. Because, you know, it costs money to do these things. People have to get paid. They got to make money somehow. So I think a lot of it is just that, because I think that, you know, journalism as we understood it online, where it was free and it was all these big websites that you just visited in that way, is undergoing like an extinction event. I just don't think it survives this beyond like maybe an IGN, but like otherwise, pretty much every other site goes under eventually.
I was going to ask, I read a thing, I can't remember where I read it, about, which I guess is part of the problem, about the shift. Do you think specialization itself is part of the issue? So, like, one of the things I've seen people saying is that the model you're talking about, you know, the newspaper model would be subscriptions and ads, and that's, you know, and ads, of course. But basically, because people were going to one source, you could kind of hoover up a large chunk of population. So investigative journalism was essentially funded by film reviews, because people would pick up the newspaper to read the review of the latest movie before they went to see it. And those kind of populist kind of elements of the paper would basically fund the actual journalism happening elsewhere in the paper. Is the fact that we're kind of doing this kind of a la carte, kind of like separated news, is that part of the issue that I guess probably unavoidable? But is there can a more generalized, I guess does IGN benefit from the fact that they do movies, games, all of that stuff like that? They can bring in that scale of population that are more, we are video games only website, which I think a lot of gamers kind of will say, oh, we just want a games website, we don't want all of this other stuff. Is that harder to achieve because you're not bringing in that broader audience?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're going for. So I think both IGN and Polygon have pretty wisely pivoted to broader entertainment.
Yeah.
Because like video games are part of that. And those landscapes are increasingly enmeshed now. I mean, the Fallout TV show is one of the best TV shows of this year. And so like, yeah, I think it makes sense if you're trying to serve an audience of that scale. And if your business model relies on that kind of a scale where you need to be attracting, you know, millions or tens of millions of people, you know, every month. But there's also room to be more focused. You've just got to be smarter about how you do it. Like, I mean, that's the goal of like Aftermath, right? Is to just like cover, I mean, you know, video games and online culture and things like that, but to do it in a little bit more of a focused way. But when you're doing that, you've also got to say, well, our audience is going to naturally not be as big. And so we can't use the same mechanisms financially that like a bigger entity could. We can't sell ads across, you know, millions and millions of views because we're not going to be able to do that. So we've got to rely on subscriptions instead. But also I think that it's worth pulling back a little bit and looking at like that general theory of this idea that you can, you know, essentially subsidize proper journalism with coverage of other things, or with like, you know, deals posts, or, you know, these things that have kind of taken over that idea of like movie reviews will then subsidize journalism. Like now, you know, for video game websites, it was always like when I was at Kotaku, it was like, you know, we do our like news hits, our news aggregation, are like things that are meant to kind of more nakedly pull in traffic, so that in the longer term, we can do these more high impact pieces about things that actually matter in the industry, or that investigate companies or what have you. And I think that works in theory if journalism is not being supported by big businesses that only want profit, because big businesses just only make profit.
At that point, and that, because because the capitalists will come in and go, well, why are we not just doing a film review newspaper then?
Right.
The shit that actually makes us money.
Yeah.
Why are we messing around with this other stuff? Yeah.
And that very literally.
There's an interesting capitalism thing about that I was just thinking before, that if the issue with subscribing to services is that you can only subscribe to so many.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be capitalism working in a good way, not in a corporatization capitalism way where nothing is good enough and everyone's burning to the ground, right? In that, like, if you're letting consumers choose to subscribe to whichever things they want, then in theory, the ones that serve consumers best will actually succeed. Wouldn't that be like kind of what capitalism is supposed to do? It just got real out of hand.
Man, you would hope, you would think. I mean, it still depends on scale, because like if you're doing a subscription based model, then yeah, you're also up against subscriber or subscription fatigue.
Yeah.
Meaning that like you are in a way competing not just with like other sites in your
Netflix.
sphere, but also Netflix and the New York Times and things like that. And those are just, again, completely different scales of business.
Yeah.
But in the eye of somebody who's like got, 10 or whatever dollars, for them it's kind of the same. They're like, which one do I want? Which one offers me more?
I feel like there's like, that would be this is such a separate conversation, but that would be the ideal of how capitalism is supposed to work, but often doesn't, is that the consumers are choosing monetarily what survives and what succeeds. It's just that like that got out of hand when corporatization became the bigger problem in the stock market, right? Like there are upsides to just consumers picking and choosing a few of them to fund. And like everyone has a Patreon, like there's already so many. It's like definitely very intimidating, but in theory, at least the consumers are deciding rather than the stock market.
Yeah. And I mean, it's cool to like, speaking from personal experience, I much prefer being beholden to our audience.
Yeah.
Who so far has proven to be like really good and chill and just on board with whatever we're doing, than to a corporate, benefactor. Or benefactor is not a good word because that implies they're doing good. But, a corporate entity that just wants us to make money, because like invariably over time, they shift your strategy into doing whatever provides the most money. And so like, we reported on this, which was kind of weird because a lot of us come from Kotaku, but Kotaku recently, had like its internal pivot to guides, where basically the people up top at Geo Media said, hey, we want you to like flip your ratio from, 50 news articles and 10 guides per week to 10 news articles and 50 guides, which A, is impossible.
No human can do.
And B, is like not even what people want out of that website.
Yeah.
And also like
we got together and we've decided we're going to make 10 times as many games.
Great.
To justify
Are we?
Yeah. We were you not at the meeting?
Oh no.
I did notice you weren't there. I think it's of the time difference. Figure it out.
I'll catch the next one. Yeah, it's that I remember there being a saying also at IGN that was something along the lines of like the website could survive for however many months just on the GTA 5 guide alone. And Minecraft, I think those guides made so much money, but the guides team is so small and always so overworked. Like those people, their jobs are so hard. I can't even imagine the particular brand of fatigue you get from just writing guides. You're just exhausted playing video games, writing guides forever. Like it's that is unsustainable to do 50 a week.
I actually when I was thinking about this when I was watching Kai Cenat play Elden Ring, because he did it with like no outside input. He was just going on like his own instincts essentially. And I was like, this must be what it was like to play this game for guides writers, where they just had to beat their head against it. And like I can't imagine doing that. I would have just lost my mind. I would have been like, nah, I'm out. Sorry. I'm gonna go get a different career.
For any this is another aside, but for anyone who I know who is looking to get into Souls games, I'll always be like, play it with a guide next to you for the first one, so that you're not just like super overwhelmed and off put. Because then once you've done it one time, like say you play Demon Souls, you have the guide next to you. You open it when you need to, but you don't open it all the time. Then all of the others you could probably do without a guide, and it's a lot easier. I didn't realize he did it with no outside help at all. Didn't it take?
I mean, I think like chat was talking at him and stuff like that.
True.
But I mean, like he was playing it his way. He was just like going through and like memorizing boss patterns and like figuring it out.
Hell yeah!
I mean, that's why Melania took him like fucking more than a day to beat, because he was just like, okay, I'm like going in here and like downloading what she does. Okay, I roll this way, I roll that way. Nope, died. Okay, back in. Yeah,
brutal.
Yep,
real rough.
Respect it though.
Totally. Yeah. How many people are left at Kotaku right now? Do you know? Like, I'm not sure.
Single digit number of people. Let's see. I think it's like 7 or 8, somewhere in there.
Man.
Yeah, skeleton crew.
And obviously, IGN had a bunch of layoffs as well, some of which were really surprising because I know they laid off one of their hosts, Nas, who was hosting the Daily Fix, and then just recently like posted a job listing for a host, which is awful. They also laid off 2 people, even though they had started a union, and it technically went against their union rules, and it's just a whole mess of a thing.
Yeah, that round of layoffs to me felt more like union busting, because it was such a small number of people and it was so targeted. But
yeah,
yeah,
but that's illegal in California, isn't it?
Should be.
I think it is.
But the thing about union busting in this country is it's pretty easy to get away with.
Yeah.
Because the consequences for union busting are not really that bad for a company.
Huh.
I mean, now this is more like when a union is being formed and less like when you have a union officially in place. But like, yeah, often the consequences are just like, you've got to pay a small fine and post a notice somewhere in your office that says, hey, we, defied this law and we're sorry about it.
Wow.
But yeah, it's like really dumb.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
How infuriating. And part of it's like a thing that I feel like I keep noticing from the shift of news consumption going from the .com for a lot of people, or from magazines and websites like we spoke about, to being, on Twitter and Instagram posts, a lot of TikTok, a lot of people retelling journalism, they call it, and just re-speaking. It's a really bad way to phrase that. News on TikTok. And I hate how old man yells at cloud. I think of myself when saying this, but I feel like when I studied journalism, there were a lot of things that they talk about it being important to recognize that your audience is able to apply context. So like, not all men. I don't know that would have existed 20 years ago. And again, I'm not sure if I'm just being old man yells at cloud, but I think people, when they were consuming a news format in like a magazine or a newspaper type of way, or even more .com, were able to recognize the context in which something was written. And I feel like there's so much less of that now. Maybe it's a speed thing, but like when I say
they were also able to like spend 10 minutes like digesting it before they
moved on to the next thing. Yeah, and
like,
I think like obviously there's always the we only read headlines, but even then, people aren't really reading headlines. It drives me nuts watching people ignore the word allegedly. I'm like, it's right there. This says alleged. That doesn't mean this newspaper is alleging that, or this outlet is alleging that. It just means somebody alleged it. And like people just skip that. And when I say the not all men thing, I think that context where you have to go, of course, I'm not talking about all men. Of course, that's obvious. I don't feel like that used to be part of the discourse 20 years ago. And I worry about like audiences not having as much context or context comprehension as a result of the way that news is now told. And so it's like become this thing that they feel is evil and is not serving them. But I just feel like that relationship got really broken at some point.
I feel we're in this weird position where like our generation is the in-between generation that understands not to trust the internet. Like I feel like I've had lots of conversations. I'm not going to, family members occasionally listen to this, so I'll be very careful. I had to like go to older family members and be like, no, this is this is how you should read the internet. But I'm also now starting to do that with like teenagers in my life, like because they don't have that knowledge. We, as that transitionary kind of generation where we kind of learned the internet, and the internet wasn't just like an ambient thing that we were born into, I do think we have this literacy that just doesn't exist above or below us. And when I look at like, all the men's activist bullshit stuff, like that seems very much like it's preying on exactly the same ignorance as the charlatans trying to, sell me one simple trick to losing weight, right?
True.
It's the same thing.
And they're hooked into the same business models too. They literally sell the same products.
Insecurities building into subscriptions to keep you in that loop of
make sure you get them dick pills
it's all
or
the same
thing.
thing.
Brain pills too.
You're absolutely right. It's literally the same product. Right?
Yeah.
That chain,
It's a good point. It's just I think that I get it. I'm not gonna say that like I don't think some websites have written some stupid shit, but
no, they all have. I mean,
everyone has. All
there's not a
have,
journalist alive who has not written something that was at least one thing or several things that was incredibly stupid.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
My backlog is full of embarrassments. You know,
because
so it
the
goes.
thing is, and this is also a thing that always stands out to me about journalism, is you're still just a human. Like, a journalist is not someone who's outside of society. You're still just a person. And I know that sounds very simple, but I think that, like, we in our head have cabal of journalists. But it's
and
really,
most journalists see themselves that way.
yeah,
As part of
still
society,
just
yeah.
a fucking
Yeah.
guy.
Most.
Like,
Yeah.
they're gonna say sometimes you're gonna be wrong about something, and that isn't the
Right.
end of the world. Like, it's not great. We'd prefer
Yeah.
if our journalists weren't, but sometimes it's kind of unavoidable. And it's, yeah, I just feel like we've gotten to this point, and I think it especially bothers me heading into another US election, where I feel like there's so much discourse about people hating journalists. And this is, I think we've spoken about this on an episode before, especially bothers me in video games, where it's like there's game devs versus the public versus the journalists, and they all are sort of at odds with each other. And I'm always like, well, the three of us should agree, and the publisher should be the one that we're all mad at. That would be so much more
Let's choose a
productive.
different demon, because no people work at publishers, so it's safe to
I'm
do
still
that.
right, Mike. Okay, if we're gonna be mad at anyone, I would be mad at the people who are the execs making the money go up decisions, who look at me go, I've disappeared. Who in some cases,
that's how angry you are.
The corporation said, "Shut up, bitch." That sometimes don't care about video games. Like, it's not productive for the consumer to be mad at the journalist, to be mad at the game dev, to be mad at the like. It just seems like such a messy system, and the lack of trust in journalism. Again, I think in some cases has been informed by journalists or created by
It
journalists.
serves us well if we argue among ourselves, basically.
Yeah, but it's just
well, yeah, it's more
such
that,
a
like,
bummer.
It's also in the interest of the people who hold the purse strings, that we're all fighting each other instead of looking at them.
Totally.
And that's by design. And that's there's no greater class solidarity than class solidarity amongst the rich. Like, they know what they're doing. This is what they want. They built the world that they wanted to see that would keep them in power.
You're right, and it's just so sad.
Yeah. It sucks.
The war on journalism, I've decided all journalists are bad. No games journalists play video games thing is like, again, I'm not saying that I haven't seen some journalists say some stupid shit, but it's their goal is still to serve the public, where that is not the goal necessarily of most publishers, as so far as the stock market is concerned. And it's just like such a broken system where it shouldn't be combative in the way that it is. And I guess social media probably made that worse too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, you've also got to keep in mind that, like, when any of these entities do things that, like, the general public doesn't like, that sows distrust in journalists, or that makes people be mad at game developers, like, odds are the person who did that thing didn't want to do that thing. Instead, somebody from on high said, you need to do this, or we need to put this in our game, or whatever else. And, like, that's a large reason why, like, the distrust or the anger is misplaced, which is a real shame. Because, again, like, it's usually fairly obvious, like, why somebody did something, because they felt pressured. But people still pick the wrong targets anyway. And then, social media definitely made that worse, because it's so much easier to just, like, find a person who's on the lower end of that ladder and go after them, because they're, like, right there, they're accessible, they'll probably accessible. Reply to you, they're vulnerable, relatively speaking, you can get a reaction out of them, so it feels like you're doing something. Because that's the other thing social media did, is it made everybody simultaneously exist as part of this larger world and also feel alienated and purposeless. And so it's very easy, when you feel alienated in that way, to try to seek out some sort of a community around something. And a lot of communities online form around being shitty to people, or harassing people, or, hating women, for example. And so, like, people join in those groups.
I've never seen
that.
I know, right? It's crazy.
I don't believe you. Well, what do you think it is about social media that makes people feel alienated?
Because you see what other people seem to be doing and the ways they seem to be living, which are often, like, not actually indicative, or they're like glorified versions of, more mundane things. And you think, man, that's not my life. My life sucks. And, like, I don't have any friends, and I don't have anything going on. I don't have a relationship or whatever, and then you start to feel like, wow, I'm the only person who's dealing with this. I'm the only, everyone else is having such a great time.
You'll need to quote Dear Evan Hansen, a perfect musical with which there are no reasonable criticisms.
Yeah, definitely not a movie featuring somebody who's, like, fucking 30 years old playing a teenager.
There is no problematic subtext to the show at all. What's the lyric? It's like, we're all looking through the window, tapping on the glass, right? Like that, we all kind of feel we're both connected, but we're also stood outside.
Yeah.
of all
Well,
of
because
that
also
interaction.
like, human beings in terms of forming community, like we didn't evolve for this. We evolved to like exist in communities of like 20 people in real life and know everybody's name and like be able to walk up and like
and look
shake their
after each
hand and
other.
all
I
this
have
shit.
no sense of community in LA.
Imagine
It really
knowing
bothers
50
me.
people tops. How wonderful would it be to not be aware of more than 50 people?
It'd be incredible.
Imagine that. And to not be perceived by more than 50 people either, which is the other big part.
The other night I was not mostly against my will walking around in Times Square. It's the worst part of New York. And I was just like, no, I don't want to be here. I'm in my mind trying to teleport. This is horrible. This is a sea of people who do not have any regard for each other. This is not the way that anything should be. This is terrible.
Yeah, I've said it on the show before, but I have the running theory that social media usage in 10, 15 years will be looked at the same way we look at smoking, where people will go, I can't believe you did that unregulated.
Oh,
we'll
we are
like,
so
we
addicted.
didn't know.
You know it was bad for
it's
you.
wild.
Yeah, we knew, but we still did it
It's
because
addictive.
we wanted to.
Well,
yeah.
and
look cool.
By design.
Yeah.
So by design. And that's the thing that gets me is like, I've just recently put an hour timer on all of my apps, meaning collective, so I can only spend an hour on social media per day. The thing that's the hardest is trying to coordinate things like the podcast. I have to be like, Twitter, 1 minute, and then I have to peace out. Anything like that. Like I
thought your DMs had gone short. I was going to talk to you.
I met up with some friends the other day, and we organized it all through Instagram. And I was like, "Oh fuck, text me!" And neither of them texted me. And I was like, "I guess I'll fucking DM."
People are like, I was wondering why all your DMs now end with fuck no.
But it is something that I had to enforce on myself just because I don't even feel like I used it that much, but I still feel like it's a waste of my time that I keep being like, I'm on a train and I go to open social media when I would much prefer to go to open like one of the 10 things that I've been writing. Like why it's just so easy to default to that. I don't want to do it anymore.
Or just call a friend, right? Just have a one-on-one. That's the thing I've been really trying to push myself through in the last 6 months is just do not try and talk to everyone on the internet. Try and talk to one person you actually care about. That's something.
Yeah, if I could talk to anyone on Instagram or call my mom, why would I not call my mom? Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. And I the sense of community, I really feel like I have no sense of community in LA. I don't know if that like applies.
Isn't that what LA is all about? Isn't it like the vibe of LA?
I mean, but LA is so like spread out. Like you have all these like little micro.
The friends I have there are great, but like the sense of community in my neighborhood, nothing.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be comfortable asking a neighbor for help. Whereas my mom, where she lives, when she came to visit me recently, my stepdad is very sick and can't walk the dog, and her neighbors organized a schedule for walking her dog. And I was like, that's incredible. That you have a community. And like while she was away,
that's very Australian though as well.
I know, I love it. While she was away, they organized to go over and have wine with him, like while she was with me, just so that he still like, and I was like, God damn, like that. I just feel like I have no sense of that. And I always think that this technology has just succeeded us. Like it has outpaced what humankind knows about this particular kind of technology way too fast. And we don't know what we've made or what it's doing to us. And it just keeps going.
We just toss stuff out there now.
Totally. And the minute that
people
endless
who
scroll,
made it definitely know what it's doing to you. Like I've been in those meetings occasionally. Like the people who build this stuff know the loop they're putting you in, and it's all by design. They're not surprised by it.
No, as soon as endless scroll was invented, we were all fucked. Like because you remember there used to be a time when you had to wait for things to load, and now it's just you keep going forever, and they all just want as much time as possible, and it's just such a. I would never blame anyone who's addicted to social media, which we all are realistically, because how can you compete against these billion-dollar companies whose whole job it is to get you addicted? Like it's that. How could one human's brain really ever like? Obviously, some people aren't on social media. It does work for some of them, but once you're on it, like you shouldn't even guilt yourself for being addicted because that's their whole job is to get you in it and as addicted to it as possible.
And to optimize that addiction every day.
Yeah, for you specifically as well. Like it's like if they tailored a drug just to what you specifically like.
They should do that though. I would like that.
That'd be sick.
I'd be up for that. Try it once, right?
No, I mean that'd be awesome. I would absolutely. But I think about this a lot. Like I used to read books, and then I just don't anymore. Yeah. And that's very funny because now I'm about to be a published author, and I'm like, I should be reading books because
you should read
I think I have a right to write books.
If you're not even reading them, expect people to buy your book.
I just I wrote my book and I was like, I think this is what a book is supposed to sound like.
Who knows? Who remembers? So what do you think the future is of the .com games journalist? What do you like? Do we think it is as doom and gloom as we've suggested? What do you think the path forward is?
I mean, again, I hope that the path forward is, something that looks like Aftermath,
Yeah.
or a cluster of some things that look like Aftermath, where, it's largely subscription driven, and like maybe the sites themselves are smaller in scale, a little bit more focused. And their main goal is not to, grow and turn a profit and like, have a newsroom of 100 people, but rather to have a newsroom of like 10 or 15 people and keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And like, just pay the people who work there a decent wage, make sure they have healthcare, all that good stuff. And then, yeah, just hold the industry to account.
Yeah.
Do the thing that they ostensibly are made to do. And like, don't get eyes bigger than their stomachs. Don't try to become some kind of multimedia behemoth that they don't need to be.
Yep. Ideally,
that's what I'm saying as
the
well.
goal for every company. That'd be
We, as an industry, we also do need the journalists.
I'm going to ask you that, Mike. How do you feel about the shift in or the decline of games journalism as a
I want good journalism, and I think most developers do. We don't always say it publicly because it can get you in trouble, but like I think most people basically who serve an audience understand that the audience is best served by having an opposing force on an intellectual level, not on a literal level, not on a combative level, as you said, but like it is good to be held to account. If I put out a product at some point, if I make a game that sucks, I am better served in the long run if games journalism exists to tell people that it sucks and to hold me to account and tell me to make better stuff. Like that is better for me as a creator. It's better for the audience as well.
It's better for you as a creator individually, I would have thought, but is it better for you as a creator business?
I think as an industry, when you see industries, it's similar to when you get industries without legal frameworks around them. When you have industries that don't have a free press that will hold them to account, you will in the short term get a lot of bad actors doing very well. True. But usually things will burn out very quickly because essentially it will run rampant. It'll as a forest fire. Like the fire does really well for a short time, but then it dies out. You do need checks and balances in order to keep people within the realms of good faith, so that we all theoretically do better as a result. So no, if I make a bad game and it gets a bunch of bad reviews, obviously that's bad for me in the short term on a commercial level. But as an industry, games get better if we review them. Game companies treat their staff better if they
that's the big thing I think.
Talk to. That's the big one. If you're someone who employs people, you want a good journalistic approach out there, because that's something I've directly benefited from, is without, as a company that doesn't have a lot of those issues, and without trying to put myself up on a pedestal, it means that it's very easy for me to hire in the industry because I have a good reputation, and a lot of other companies have their reputations very clearly communicated publicly via journalism. If everyone was secretly treating people awfully, and many are, and that wasn't talked about, and we as an industry weren't kind of held to any kind of standard,
or if there wasn't
those of us who try and treat people better, I'd lose my edge. Like on a purely commercial, putting aside like morality, which is always a great way to start a sentence.
Just forget about morality for a minute. Yeah,
I'm better served if the industry at large understands that there are standards that are met by some companies and not by others. It's good for those of us who meet those standards, right? Like that's a positive, that's a benefit on lots of levels. And I just think,
and
like
the risk,
everything helps.
The risk of a journalist reporting on bad practices, where that the people who are dealing with the bad practices can't report on them or say anything because they get fired. Like even just having that as a permanent threat is beneficial to workers, I think. Like having
massively
the idea that somebody could leak something about,
But my point is, it's also long-term better for the employers as well. On a holistic level.
Yeah, I agree. It is.
Because the bad actors get called out for it.
Yeah.
Don't be a bad actor.
And the damage that they can do, which would be, cause mass burnout, loads of people leave the industry forever. Like there are a lot of potential downsides to those bad actors succeeding.
The only people who fear journalists are people who have a reason to fear journalists.
Yeah, exactly.
And PR teams just in general, I think.
Yeah, they really
fucking
do.
terrified.
That's a fraught relationship.
A lot of PR teams will, like, on the whole, I think are in the same way as, like, not all games companies are good actors, not all journalists, they're people, right? So there will be bad actors who build a bad reputation with PR. But generally, I think most PR people behind the scenes, I mean, the joke always is that PR teams know full well how good the thing that they're putting in front of the journalists actually is. And they can't say that, they can't talk about it, but like a PR team absolutely knows, oh, this one's not going to be one that gets very good coverage, or this one's going to get great coverage. Most PR people will get that and navigate that professionally, I think.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Maybe might be a bit, might have a limited perspective maybe on that, but
in my experience, it varies.
Yeah, I would say it varies.
Okay,
too,
fair play. I'll trust your experience on that
one.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, and I get it. Like sometimes people's priorities are at odds, and like there's going to be friction as a result of that. It happens sometimes.
Totally. I would love to leave this on a more positive note, but I don't know. I don't really know how to. Obviously.
Well, if you want to feel good about yourself in your life, you can always subscribe to Aftermath.site.
That's your third one.
Also, I've got a book coming out.
What is the book actually, by the way? Genuinely.
What did you write?
It is about Twitch and live streaming as a medium and as a form. It focuses on 9 different Twitch creators and kind of paints a more holistic view of what Twitch is as a platform and a business.
Cool.
And is that announced with a title yet?
It does not have its official title yet. It's going to come out probably February of next year. It's basically done. Finally, I've been working on it for years. I am so happy that I don't have to think about it anymore.
That's the joy of releasing anything, right? Is I can just put this beside me.
The only problem with reporting on Twitch streamers is that they have all these scandals. And so I'll think that the book is done, and then a thing will happen, and I'll be like, emailing my editor, like, hey, can you pass me the manuscript again? I gotta fucking go back and change a bunch of stuff.
Damn.
Yeah. And stressful. Very stressful.
Related to that, I guess, how do you think that Twitch and YouTube have affected .com journalism?
I mean, they've changed things tremendously. Just insofar as like a lot of people get their information from there now. Whether they are somebody, I mean, I spend like half my day watching Hassan Piker, so I get a lot of my news.
Yeah.
And like it, the quality of the information they get varies. Because like there's some people like Hassan who do their due diligence and like make sure that they're giving people good information. There are other people who just, say whatever they've heard on the internet. So like they will be saying a thing that they got from some random tweet or something like that. They won't fact check it. And that will go out to millions of people. You'll spread it to millions more people. And like, overnight you have something that is totally false, but is believed to be entirely true. But at the same time, because of SEO and concerns like that, because like basically the other part of the internet is owned by Google, which also owns YouTube, like the same practices are kind of rampant in regular journalism too. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's another way that all this stuff gets homogenized is when the same few companies own every platform, then everyone's priorities sort of shift in the same direction as those companies. And that leads to, worse information and a worse internet for all of us. Sorry, I'm incapable of actually being uplifting. It's
not. It's just not uplifting. Is what it is. And I always feel like the cult of personality stuff has really shifted the way people consume things too. Like, I think in a lot of cases, people prefer to hear their favorite person's take on news than they do to hear news, and that's probably part of the appeal of Hassan Piker.
Tremendously.
They like hearing what Hassan has to say about the news more than they even like the news itself, which is like very difficult for .com to compete with. I think even like a lot of the brands that have tried, like BuzzFeed certainly tried to have a lot of personality, a lot of that be part of their brand. The people end up leaving and they end up kind of
you build them up and they are their own outlet at that point.
Yeah, right? It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough one to approach. And it's like, I get why people would prefer to see their favorite YouTubers review a game or talk about whatever gaming news than to just read the text on a website.
Yeah.
They get more context.
Well, it's also why, like, I think part of the future of all this is going to be splitting the difference. Like, even, for Aftermath, literally right after this, in around like 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to go hop on our Twitch stream and record our podcast, which we do every week. And like, we maintain a Discord. We have all these ways that we communicate directly with our audience.
True.
And I think that is just an unavoidable part of the future of journalism, is you've got to be a little bit of a content creator in addition to being a journalist.
That's been that way for a while. Because like when I went to school to study journalism, it occurred to me that if I wanted to do it full time, like back then, that I needed to get good on camera. I was terrible on camera when I first started. And then I started making practice YouTube videos because I recognized if I want to work full time in this thing, it's so competitive. I have to be able to speak on camera. So I also learned a video edit, and that was like 10 years ago. Like and it's
that
only
whole
gotten...
wave was also from like I'm the generation of indie developers who like saw the mega success of like Indie Game the Movie and went, oh, I guess I need to be able to talk in front of a camera. And like you could argue I'm better at talking in front of a camera than I'm making video games or sometimes, like, and I think that's like that's a part of every job now, right?
The industry's actually sort of avoided that. Like if you go visit that EA campus in Redwood, they have all these original posters of dev teams, and they tried to market them like they were bands, like they were rockstars. That was an actual marketing tactic.
Like Cliffy B. That was.
I was gonna say
he was that era as well. I mean, Romero.
He was a manufactured pop act, basically, right?
Sort of.
I do want to say, as a brief aside, I love that Cliffy B has gone from being that to being the most normal guy ever. He just
really like video games. Really like him.
He left behind video games, and now he's just like doing side quests.
Yeah,
he's like doing karaoke. He's fun and Broadway.
He's funny.
And no one who likes Broadway can be a bad person. Like,
he funds Broadway. Yeah, he's done the dream. Made a ton of money, bought a house, and now it's just like, spend money on this thing I fucking like.
Yeah,
it's great.
And like people keep asking him to like return to games, and he's like,
honestly,
fuck
off.
Why would you? At that point, why would you? Yeah.
So funny. Yeah, but I forgot what I was saying. You
were talking about how they were trying to make rockstars.
Oh yes, so they were trying to make game devs into rockstars. Kojima would be that now. We don't have a lot of maybe a Joseph Fares. But now a lot of publishers try not to do that. They're actively like trying to lean away from that, because I think the concern or the thing that's happened to BuzzFeed is the thing that they're concerned about, which is but then they leave, and what happens to the identity of the game, and then everybody's panicked.
It also gives the developers much more
power.
Yeah, like, and that's like, it's definitely something we've benefited from many times. Of like, we have the knowledge that publishers have that we can work with other publishers is definitely kind of a good thing for us, like as a team. So yeah, we've kind of lent into it a little bit, I suppose.
True.
All these companies want to be bigger than any individual face within that company.
Yeah.
They want the brand to subsume all.
Yep. But again, it doesn't really work that way for journalism. It doesn't work that way for music. It doesn't even really work that way for film. You have to lean on your actors and your director. It's very, I don't know, I feel like it's pretty unique to games. I mean, it's probably unique to software. There's a lot of things that it exists in, but games have never really let the personality thing come through, only in some small cases.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, I think you see this more and more too. Like Riley actually for our site wrote a really good article about this, about how like all these different people, all these different executives are trying to just sell names at this point, when they like, bringing it full circle back around to like IGN buying Gamer Network, in their mind, they're selling a brand and a name. The people are immaterial to that. Which is why they felt fine just laying off like these folks who'd been there for 10 years out the gate.
Even the work is immaterial, right? It's just like with E3 shutting down, I was like, capitalism won't let the name E3 die. I also kind of feel the same way about Rooster Teeth. Like I was really surprised Rooster Teeth shut down, which I guess somebody now owns the name. It's Warner, I guess, but I think so too.
Whatever form it relaunches in, if it ever does, it will not be the same.
Different,
because Rooster Teeth was the people.
Valuable. Yeah.
Same with all of these other enterprises and initiatives.
Totally.
Like the people are what matter, and they always will be. And my hope and my belief is that fans, viewers, readers, whatever, will recognize that, and we'll see the zombified version of whatever thing they used to like get passed around, and they'll be like, "Nah, I don't want that."
If I can't even Google something without putting Reddit because I don't want to read an article, I want to read what a human has to say about it. Like, surely the AI thing is going to end up the same way. That like everyone really thinks AI can write all their articles right now, but the minute that people start going, I'm just going to
make so many mistakes. It's hilarious.
I don't understand how some tech guys managed to convince people that LLMs were actually. My brain just melts when I try and think about it. It's like the NFT thing a couple of years ago.
It is 100% the NFT thing. It's NFT wave 2.
Objectively wrong, and it will burn out at some point. But the amount of damage it's doing before the flame out is really worrying.
Great for those
predictable damage. People are like, back when AI first became a buzzword, people were like, this is going to just like overwhelm the internet. There's going to be AI sludge everywhere. Here we are a couple years later. It's true. It happened. This was an unforced
thing about nano machines. We're going to turn the universe into grey sludge, right? It's the same thing. It's the idea of unlimited generation of trash.
We are seeing a little bit of the death of the internet in general, though, too. Like, it's not just journalism. Some of it's also social media, because, half your Twitter replies are bots. nudes in profile is a funny joke, but like it's like that. Those are just bots that are engaged in conversation.
They're all real.
They
are
are
really
all
engaged with my
single babes available in your
area.
They're
your biggest fans.
Yeah, I'm really popular. I don't know what I had a haircut. I don't know, something changed.
Nudes in
profile. It's been great.
She's only charging me $2. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Also, I need to go because I've got to go hop onto our show.
Thank you for joining us. I'll let you plug it one more time. Go ahead.
Aftermath.site. It's that simple. It's such a concise, clean URL. It's the envy of the internet.
/products.
Subscribe, I think.
Yeah, it really is. You'll just like find yourself, waking up sleepily one morning and you'll accidentally have entered it into your address bar, and then you may as well just do it.
Where can people find you on the internet, Nathan, if they would like to see more from you in general outside of Aftermath.site?
I'm also on Twitter at VAHN16, a handle that I picked when I was a teenager, and now here I am many years later regretting it.
I relate.
Yeah.
I'll leave a link in the description though.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. And yeah, just for regular listeners, we haven't had 3 guests in a row on purpose. It just sort of happened. I swear it's not on purpose. Also, Austin just got married. He gets a pass this episode. Congrats to Austin for getting married apparently last week. I thought he got engaged and I was offended that I wasn't invited, but it's fine. We can discuss that next week. Austin.
It was a whole DM chain in very short DMs sent sporadically throughout.
Followed by, shit, I'm out of time.
We will see you next week. Oh no, in 2 weeks. Bye everybody.